Hi, everyone. I would like to tell you a little story about someone who pretty much has carried PTSD for most of their life. Starting at 8 years old, the father left them, and they end up growing up all the way up to their 18 with about seven other fathers. And they were abusive and alcoholics and maybe some drug users as well. And it's a pretty rough childhood this person had to go through. And pretty much ended up homeless at 18, walking the streets of California, and had nowhere to go until they decided to join the military. And that was a huge pivotal point in this person's life, and that person is me. I ended up going into the Navy as a medic, as a corpsman, and then went to the green side, went to First Recon out of Camp Pendleton, ended up going to Kuwait for 6 months, 92 area, 93, and ended up getting out in 94 and moving to Michigan to go to medical school, but ended up dropping out because it just wasn't my forte at the time. But I did find my calling as a paramedic and became an advanced paramedic with cardiac trauma and pediatrics. And then in 2000, I became a firefighter. I was a firefighter for the 5 years from 2000 to 2005, and we all know during that time is when 9/11 happened, and that sparked a little rage in me and a little and even some opportunity to support our troops. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't go back in the military, so I had a friend of mine who turned me on to the contracting world, and so I ended up spending a year. Starting in 2004 to attain my secret security clearance, and ended up joined a security contracting company to support Department of State and Department of Defense as a high threat security operations in the Middle East. And so I ended up going to Iraq, dropped boots in October of 2005, and spent the next 4 years working in Iraq as a combat medic and shooter. And it was an incredible time, and I learned a lot, but I also lost a lot. Saw a lot of friends go, and it was some hard times. I learned a lot though, and my PTSD grew even more. So I came home finally from Michigan, or back to Michigan in 2000, around 2008, 2009, which is the same time that we went legal medicinally for cannabis. And I had a friend that actually told me all about it. His brother's been growing it for years. And so they kind of turned me on to the idea of what cannabis is all about, the history and all that. So I looked into it even more. I even bought a book by Jorge Cervantes to learn all about the history of cannabis, learn how to grow it, learn the value of it, the medicinal value, and also realize that as my mom used it towards the end of her life, which I shamed her for, I'd come to realize that she was actually medicating, and that sparked a real another change in my life. So I started to grow, and I started to do it the right way. Took on patients, took care of them the right way, found strains that supported them the right way in their symptoms and their ailments. Started medical records on them, vital signs, the whole 9 yards, and really took it seriously. And again, I kept learning more and more as I went into this and researching other opportunities. But also after a little while during that time, some other areas of my life fell apart, and so I ended up going back contracting back to Afghanistan, and for the next 3.5 years. And that's when I ended up on a team called Task Force Dragon Slayer. And we were tasked, we were handpicked, the four of us, to support the Army Corps of Engineers to work with them to help develop forward operating bases, or build small forward operating bases at the mouth of the Taliban Trail right on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan, to keep the logistics and the people from coming back and forth. That was the whole plan. So that's what we did for the next 3.5 years, working there and doing that. Getting shot at a lot, going through a lot of getting blown up as well. I've been blown up 4 times, and it went through a lot during that time as well. But again, we grew very close together, and we really had each other's back. I mean, just the four of us out there it was pretty much on the border of suicide, I think. Now that I look back at it sometimes, but around the end of November 2012, we were on a mission to look for another small area for a forward operating base, and we were off grid a little bit. and we were at about 8,000 feet in the Kush Mountains. And I also always filled my buddies in on, cannabis and what it was about and the medicinal value and what I did and how much fun I had with it and everything else. And so my buddy ended up coming across some plants that were being grown out there in some rock almost. And when I came across it, when he pulled me up and said, "Hey, you got to look at this," standing on top of this Afghan mountain, overlooking a valley, and I realized, wow, these tribes don't grow this up here. It was just a few plants. It wasn't a field or anything. And I thought, they don't grow this up here unless it's important. And so I acquired a few of those plants, which were dropping seeds at that time. And I even left a medic bag in its place, just because I think ethically, morally, I think it was the right thing to do. My team lead was giving me a hard time about it, Mike, telling me I was crazy for doing it, but he wasn't stopping me. So I ended up bringing these plants back onto base and went through some other areas to find out, are these seeds worth it? Is this something that I need to look into further? So I separated the males from the females, hid the females somewhere, and ended up, pulling a bunch of those seeds out and saving those. Probably after a few more months of kind of working on my own, delegating, with them, maybe opportunities or whatever. But eventually those seeds found their way back to the United States on their own, one way or another. And I ended up getting hurt one more time, so I ended up coming back home in 2013. But before that, it was probably March of 2013, and me and my buddies, just the three of us. One guy got sent home; he was hurt, and we come to realize that, after watching our families grow up through Skype, and watching our kids grow up through Skype and through email and through text, and watching divorces happen, and we're just so haggard and hurting, and we realized that. We almost didn't care anymore. So my team leader, which was strange, came out and said, "Hey, Doc, where's those plants at? Let's smoke them. We didn't care. Let's do it." So I said, "All right." So we ended up getting a granny apple out of the chow hall and made it into like one of those little homemade bong kind of things, and found a place outside, secret place to smoke it. And I was thinking, wow, who do we know that smokes, from the America that smokes cannabis in the middle of the Afghan Kush Mountains? So I thought, wow, this is an opportunity. And we did that. And we ended up going back into his room and sitting there for a little bit. My buddy Matt, who his legs are pretty bad and his knees have been shot up pretty bad, he's sitting in there, and he goes to stand up out of the chair and he falls out. And we start laughing at him. I'm like, "Matt, are you okay?" And he's like, looks up at me with his big beard and this huge grin and this Southern accent. He's like, "Man, I can't feel my legs." I was like, "What?" And then my buddy Mike, who's sitting on the bed, he's laying like this sideways, and he's looking at me. He's like, "I feel like I'm floating on air." And it hit me from the feet all the way up to my head and in my mouth and my tongue, and my lips went numb. And I was like, "Oh my God," I couldn't feel a thing. And we just started laughing, and everything, all the pain that we went before that, and all the things that we went through didn't matter anymore. And all the things that we were looking forward to, and the mission the next day and everything else, that didn't matter at all. We were completely in the moment and just immersed so much in the moment, and we were pain free and we were happy. And I'm sitting there as a medic, and I'm like, if this isn't medicine, then I'm not a medic. And that was my second epiphany. And I thought, wow, this is something, this could be the cure to PTSD. This could be the cure to other ailments. This could be a cure to cancer. No. Everything that I've learned and understood, I was like, this is something. So after coming home and finding those seeds again, I realized that maybe I should look into it. So I started researching and developing these seeds and growing them. And I ended up writing my book about PTSD and what I went through to help other vets and what they're going through, and help them understand what cannabis did for me. And so I wrote my book called The Strains of War. And it was therapeutic, but I've realized also that, I used cannabis to get me off. I was on opioids when I came home. I was on mental health medications as well. And as I used cannabis as a medic, knowing what I was doing in a way, I got myself off of those. But I want you to understand that it wasn't just as I use that cannabis and I'm thinking this is what's going to fix me. over time, it wasn't the only thing. And I started to realize that I needed more than that. So I knew that maybe that cannabis and therapy, cannabis alone isn't going to fix it, but cannabis, especially for PTSD, but cannabis and therapy is really what works. And I found that out through trial and error and through my own heartaches and pains that I've been through since coming home. And that's really what I want everyone else to understand, is that with the right therapeutic, with the right therapy, the right therapist or nurses or doctors who really are going to listen, because that's what I screamed the most. Is it wasn't just about, you want me to tell you my story or tell you what I've been through. I will, and I'll share that, but I need to have that I need to know that they want that they really are there for me, and that they really care enough. And so when I found a therapist that really I knew was listening to me and understood cannabis, and then I could talk to them on the same level as cannabis, and that they supported as well, and maybe even open up more. And so I knew that, wow, I'm learning as much from them as they are from me. And it wasn't a battle anymore. It was a shared experience. And so with the use of cannabis and the use of the right therapy, I found that I'm on the right trail and the right track. I'll always be in recovery for the rest of my life, but at least I know that I'm not moving backwards. I'm still moving forward. And that's really what I want everybody to understand. So I appreciate your time. And I appreciate you understanding and learning about cannabis. Thank you.